Okay, just getting set up here. Hope you guys are having a good day. Glad to see you guys on day 3. We've made it. We're over the hill. We're into the second half of all the information and everything. So I'm really excited to share this with you guys. Let's see, share screen. Cool, awesome, hi. If you guys want to say hi in the comments and let me know who's here with me today. Really happy to see you guys. Just going to pull it up on my phone so I can see the comments here too. Cool. Awesome. Hey, Megan. Hi, Haley. Hi, Melissa. You guys are all here. Yay. Cool. Hey, Suzanne. Oh my gosh. All the friends. Good to see you guys. Okay. So let's get into it. Welcome to Therapy Business Basics Day 3, where we talk about putting a few more things in place to help protect ourselves. Hi, Katie. Hi, Kathy. Everybody is all here. Hey, Nicole. So I do want to thank you guys all for participating so much the past couple of days. It's made this a ton more fun, to have you guys engaging and submitting your assignments. I've had a bunch of people submitting their stuff and posting about it in the Facebook group. And it's just been really cool, as I'm sure you guys have seen, to have more and more of us talking about this and what's required, what's involved, to help everybody continue to work towards, a common goal. So before we get into day 3, I wanted to take a couple of minutes just to see if there are any other questions about the material that we've gone over the past couple of days. So like day 1, some of the intro stuff, kind of mindset-y stuff, as well as like checking our rules and regulations to see what we can and cannot do as our own practice owners. And then yesterday we talked a lot about like setting up a business entity, business licensing, business banking. So I just wanted to check and see if you guys had any questions on that. You can go ahead and throw those in the comments before we get into the second half of the information. Hi, Joey. Oh my gosh, I haven't talked to you in so long. I hope things are going well. Hi, Haley. So good to see you guys here. Awesome. So just let me know if there are any questions from the past couple of days. And today we are going to have a little bit of a shorter day. The past 2 sessions have been like just over an hour. And tonight I fully expect it to be under an hour, depending on how many questions we have. So it'll be a really good time to kind of catch up on any of the stuff that you haven't gotten to yet. And there'll be time for playing catch up. And then tomorrow we'll have one big final push to set up kind of our like back end admin type stuff, so that we can do documentation and communicate well with our patients. So tonight we will be covering an overview of like what liability insurance is and why you need it, as well as getting our initial forms and everything set up. So if that all sounds okay, just give me a thumbs up or an A-OK in the comments and we'll get into that. And just let me know if there are any questions, or if you think of it as we get going, that's totally fine too. All right, cool. Katie is ready to go. Let's do this. Talk about all the fun things that go with liability insurance. Awesome. Hey, Joel. So what is liability insurance? We talk about this a little bit in school sometimes, like the clinicals might require it. And we know we should get it, but, what is it really for? So to kind of go like way back to the beginning, let's talk about liability insurance stuff. Yay, so many thumbs up. Awesome, you guys, thanks. So liability insurance covers, like if something were to happen, which there's a really like this small chance of something happening, but just in case, we like to be protected. And I think as like healthcare providers and therapists in particular, we like to make sure all the things are where they're supposed to be and we don't really take a ton of risks. probably starting your own business is really the riskiest thing that you'll be doing. But even then, it still is a really good opportunity. So liability insurance in particular covers, if something happens like with a patient or wherever you're practicing. So it helps to cover legal fees, your license, it helps protect your license. If there's any kind of misconduct, weird thing, if there's damage to the property that belongs to somebody else, if like somebody gets hurt or injured, their medical payments and everything. And so that's what it's for. And then there are a couple different types that typically people start off with. So there's individual professional liability insurance. And this one helps protect ourselves and our licenses. It's like the one thing that I do want to say is that like I've been advised that it's even good to have your own individual professional liability insurance, even if you're working full-time or part-time at another company and that company has insurance that covers you, it may or may not cover you fully. And when it comes down to it, as we've seen in a lot of different ways, you have to be your own advocate and you have to look out for yourself. So even if you're working full-time, professional liability insurance, individual coverage still might be really good to have anyway. And then one thing that I was looking at is like, what's the difference between professional liability insurance and what's the difference, like compare and contrast with general liability insurance. Not an insurance professional by any means, but one of the biggest things that I found is that professional liability insurance tends to cover like more abstract risks. So like weird things that might happen with the services or, clients are really unhappy. And general liability insurance might more cover bodily injuries and property damage. But I was just looking at my professional liability coverage statement that I have with HPSO, which I have mixed feelings on. And it does cover the bodily injuries and property damage. So I believe it just kind of depends on the company you're working with and the type of coverage that is put into their policies. So that would be a question to ask them. And I know another big question that comes up is, does this cover telehealth? And so like what I've been told by HPSO is like, as long as it is within the scope of your practice act, then the services are covered, like whatever like format of delivery of services. But just something to ask. And I would recommend speaking with a few different companies. I know that there are ways to just like get a quote and sign up on different websites, but what I found that made me feel more comfortable was actually calling the company and working with somebody and just saying like, this is my business. This is what I plan to do. What kind of coverage do you think I need? Versus like trying to fill out, the little form wizard by myself. So again, totally up to you what you want to do with that. But just something to look into. You should probably call like 2 or 3 companies to see what's going on. And then I also just have this link down here at the bottom where the Small Business Association also goes over like other insurance coverage type stuff. So then just some options. So a lot of people ask, what company should I use? And so I've had HPSO the whole time that I've been in practice. It's what I had in school as well. It was what was recommended to us. And I know like I found it on the APTA website. But from what I have been told, what I've heard, and what I myself have experienced is that it's probably the most expensive option. It may or may not be the most comprehensive. That's what I was told by, somebody who did talk to HPSO and got like a bunch more information, is that HPSO insurance is fairly comprehensive, but it is a good chunk of change. So kind of like pros and cons on what you really value with that. They've been pretty easy to talk to on the phone. It's more expensive than you want it to be. And then, so these are just some other options. There's a bunch out there, and you can do this as a part of your homework, part of your assignments, to research and see what's out there. But I know a lot of people use CM and F. There are these ones for PTs and OTs, my PT insurance, my OT insurance, Wouldn't be surprised if there's a speech one as well. I've been seeing some people recommend American Professional, and there are a few others that people really like. So what I would really recommend doing is searching around all the other Facebook groups. So either in here or in some of the bigger ones, people are always asking what professional liability insurance is best, which one costs the least. So you can go into those different Facebook groups and use the search bar and just type in like liability insurance, and I'm sure that you'll get a bunch of different discussion posts, and you can see what kind of feedback people have, what experiences they've had, and that can help inform your decision to figure out what kind of insurance to get. But like I said, I would definitely try to talk to 2 to 3 different insurances and see what kind of feel you got, because customer service is going to be really important as well. You want to be able to call them, talk to them, and figure things out. So cool. So Suzanne said, how much do you pay? So right now my insurance with HPSO is $94 a month. And yours might be $68, Suzanne, because you don't have a business yet. So that's why mine is probably up higher, is because it's covering my business. Like me as a single member LLC. So that's probably why it is a little bit more expensive. So that's what you guys can kind of look for. I know CMNF, one of my clients got that, and it was like $300 something for the year. So just to give you guys kind of an idea. But if any of you guys in here, watching, do you already have professional liability insurance? And if so, what company do you use, and has it been a good experience? I'm sure that everyone watching would love to hear, who to contact, who not to contact. So if that is something that you already have, please drop it in the comments. And that would be really useful information. Kathy says, are there multiple options for costs when you call the insurance plans? I'm sure that there are, and it probably depends on the company, and I'm not an insurance spokesperson or anything like that, so I don't know all the plans off the top of my head, but that's what I would just recommend doing, is calling them and saying hey, this is my plan. What kind of coverage do I need? What plans do you guys have available? Most of the time they have payment plans and things like that. So just something to check into. So great. So any other questions on liability insurance, please drop them in the comments and I will get back there. Let's see. Haley says, I have HPSO. I really like their customer service. Also, they have some basic cyber liability built in, which my lawyer recommended. Perfect. So just something to consider with that, if that is also important to you. Cool. Thanks for sharing, Haley. So let's talk about forms. All kinds of forms. Some people love to make these, some people don't, and they're a pain in the butt. But let's talk about the different kinds of forms that we need. And tonight we will be covering consent to treat forms and intake forms. And then tomorrow we'll be going over documentation templates and things like that. So one aspect of being a cash-based business is you can put whatever you want on your forms. You are the one who's coming up with them. So your standard policies and procedures, whatever you think is going to be important, or what information that you feel like would be, integral to your operations, you can put on these forms. These are the ones that I highly suggest doing. And then you can always edit it and change it as you go. Joey says also, I paid $168 a year for HPSO. So yeah, just a lot of different options. So the consent to treat forms, these are consent waivers that it's basically an agreement, between you and your patient that you guys are both on the same page. You understand what's going to be happening. And one piece of advice that I would say with these consent to treat forms is, even though you will send it to somebody and have them sign it, on your first appointment, after having them fill out these forms, I would go over it, and say, I saw that you signed my consent to treat form. Did you have any questions on it? Because a lot of the times, even like you and me, I'm sure we sign stuff and don't always read it 100%. I'm sure there are people who always read everything, but most people are imperfect when it comes to that. So make sure that you ask your patients if they have any questions on the consent to treat form. And then the one issue that I have run into with somebody is that they signed off on my cancellation policy, and then they were very upset with me when I attempted to execute my cancellation policy. And it was not a good time. So that would be my other recommendation, is if like that's something that's important to you, is punctuality and people not no showing. I would make sure to go over that with your patient on their first visit, and ask not only do you have any questions on the consent form, but did you read the part about my cancellation policy? I just want to make sure that's clear so that we're both on the same page. So then, right from the get-go, you're pre-framing your entire relationship and promoting an environment of like openness, honesty, and just being straightforward with each other. So Divine says, did you send it over email and ask them to send it back through email? No. I think that's kind of clunky to do. It is definitely an option. But what I really liked, and what I'll talk about here in a second, is using digital forms. So I've used all of these. I live and die by Intake Q as a practice management software. If this is something that you can invest in, I highly recommend it. I love it to pieces. And my patients have loved it too. But really, like what almost all of my patients have told me is they liked the fact that they got a digital version of a form and they just had to fill it out on their phone and submit it. And it was really, really easy. So that is the way that I've been doing things. And that is what I typically advise people to do as well. Let's see. Kathy says, I'm doing a home visit in a week. Would it be better to mail the forms rather than giving it to them on the day of the visit? So if you're comfortable, again, like if you're comfortable with using a computer and creating a digital form, and I'll show you how to do that in a second, I would do this, because then you can get the forms, together. You can send them to your patient and get them back like same day, and then it makes it really, really easy. So all the pieces on a consent form. So obviously the very beginning, so agreement and consent to treat, making it clear and understandable what is happening, describing the services of your business, what your business does, and then getting, the initials and the signed form from the patient saying, by signing the above, I indicate that I understand what services I'm going to be receiving, and I agree to work with the practitioner. Number 2, privacy policy. So how you're going to be handling their information. 3, payment policies, which I'll talk about a little bit more down here as well. So that kind of goes along with the cancellation policy too. Making your rules, your policies clear, helps to, frame your business as like one that has boundaries and is not going to be walked all over. So I think that's really good to have in there. A photo and video consent can also be really good, because then you can take photos or take videos and publish them to social media and use them in your marketing campaigns. I've had some patients who decline, some patients who agree. So just something that you can keep track of and ask them about. And if you are going to be posting pictures or videos of patients, you might want to at least ask them the first time you do that if it's still okay with them, just so everybody's on the same page. I like to put this in here, even though, we're mandated reporters and everything. I just like to make it clear in my forms that, if something happens, especially like if the patient is unconscious or something, like I need to be able to disclose, protected health information in case of an emergency, and just make sure that that's on the form. And then that definitely the patient name and a signature. So all of these kinds of things, people have different stuff in their consent forms. They're in the units tab in the Facebook group here. There is a forms unit, I think towards the end. And there are a couple of different examples of consent forms in there. So you can check those out. But what I wanted to do was show you guys how amazing JotForm is. Melissa says, do you have paper copies for the technology challenge if you do in-person care? I could print it out and bring it to them, but I've worked with people all across the age span and with all different kinds of like technology levels. And so far it's all worked fine. So like the way that both of these work is like, JotForm, you guys have been filling out the Jot forms for your assignments so far in the mini course. Works the exact same. You send the link to the form, they fill it out, click submit, and then you get it. And then intake queue, I say, I pull up my form and click on send to a client. And then the client just gets an email saying, Morgan Muse would like you to fill out this form. There's a big green button that says open the form, and then they just fill it out. So it's been really straightforward. I haven't had any problems with it. So let me pull this up and show this to you guys. So JotForm, I think, is kind of like Google Forms on steroids. So there's like a bunch more stuff that you can do with it. I think Google Forms is fine. Super simple. It comes with a G Suite account, which we'll talk about tomorrow. But I like the flexibility of being able to add in a bunch of other stuff and do other things with it. So I've really liked JotForm. And the other cool thing about it too is that I think through the end of the year, they're offering free unlimited access to the HIPAA compliant version of JotForm for, like it says, coronavirus first responders. So all of us healthcare workers here. And I've loved JotForm too. So you can get this for free for right now, and then you can always move on to something else or just drop back to Google Forms. But the cool thing about this as well that I really like is that you guys can see they have this massive library of already pre-made forms. And if you just look up, therapy consent is what I searched, but they have a bunch of different like telehealth consent forms. There are these different ones here. There was one down here. Yeah, there's a physical therapy form, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's also, OT or speech or anything else that you guys are doing. There are a bunch of different consent forms to pick from, and then you can just upload them into your account and change them from there. Obviously don't keep it as just sample title, subtitle. You want to change it to what is relevant to your business, but then like the whole format and everything is already built for you. So you don't have to worry about doing anything with that. So just some options to pick from there. And then, like I said, I love intake queue to pieces. And you can use the forms on there for their lowest option. Paid option is $29 a month for up to 10 forms. Being submitted through there. So I really liked it. And then their full practice management software, I think it's either $49 or $59. But I mean, you can do all of your forms, all of your documentation. You can make all of your documentation templates. You can do your booking. You can send appointment reminders. You can do your billing through it. They have a telehealth option in there. Like it's been so essential to the way that I operate my business. I cannot recommend it highly enough. And I'm not even an affiliate for them right now. So just something to check out with that. And then payment agreement. So the other thing, so I just, talked about how JotForm has some pre-made templates and you can kind of go from there. There are also versions if you look in different Facebook groups or Google and just look for a pre-made version of a consent to treat form. There are a lot of lawyers who offer those as paid products on their websites. So you can always look into that as well. And then my friend Brandon, he is a law student right now. And so he's been helping a lot of healthcare providers with legal things. So, I might be able to answer some of your questions, but if you have like more complex questions, I would definitely, check out Brandon Smith's stuff. And then this is one thing that he's been helping people with is, like the payment agreement aspect of things. So I just put this link in here. If this is something that you guys think would be helpful for you, he has these like official payment agreements available for just $20. So something to look into with this as well. So let's see, any questions on consent to treat stuff? And just drop those down in the comments. Oops. Getting things all set up and then exiting out. Okay. Yay, Suzanne loves it. Cool. And Divine says, not good at technology. Is Google Forms included in G Suite? It is indeed. So it's really easy to use. You could probably just Google Forms, and it'll show up and take you through the process of how to build those. And another good place, Divine, to learn how to use Google Forms would be YouTube. So you could go on YouTube and search, how to create an intake form on Google Forms, and that will give you some good information on there. I believe I also, in the Units tab, there should be another video that I made on creating forms, and I will see if I can pop that into the announcements section of the Facebook group after this session tonight. So I could put that on there. And then as far as Brandon's stuff goes, I also put that in the announcements section of the group. So when you click on the discussion tab of the group, it should be right at the top. It's a post that Brandon wrote, and you can check out his stuff there. But his name is Brandon Smith. Yeah, and he has the home health mentor course. So you can find him in there, Katie. And then Deborah says, how do you decide which treatment forms to use since you have all three? Which treatment forms? What do you mean by that, Deborah? If you can tell me a little bit more about what you mean with which treatment forms. But cool. And then I will come right back to you. Okay. And then moving forward onto intake forms. So also something that is really, really helpful. Some clinicians choose to have like minimal intake forms, like maybe some past medical history and just contact information, and they prefer to take all of their like information down about the patient during the evaluation. I personally like to be as prepared as possible, so my intake form for patients is fairly lengthy, and it goes across not only their contact information, but their past medical history, what they're coming to me for, and then some different like wellness factors. So these questions right here, I think the more that we can ask about people as a whole person, the better care that they'll get. And that's kind of like a provider and practice preference. But these are the things that I have on my intake form. So, obviously, who is it for? Their contact information. So I like to ask for a home address as well as, phone number and email. And the reason for that is, if something were to happen, like if I were seeing a patient virtually and they had something like crazy happen and they went unconscious or something else happened and I had to call 911, you need an address to send services to. So that's why I really like to have the home address, or, if the patient is going to be somewhere else most of the time that you're seeing them, I would get that address as well. And same reason, emergency contact information, at least one person, get that information on their intake form. PMH, social history, so asking them a little bit more about like family or work, those kinds of things. Any red flags, you can pop those on there. Like I was saying, asking about their stress level, their sleep habits, their nutrition habits, even asking like how often do you regularly exercise? Is that something you want to work on improving? Along with asking about other goals, asking about the patient's expectations in working with you. This can be something that you ask like during a consult, before anybody even pays you. That can be a really helpful question, but also putting it on your intake form can be really informative to you about what your patient is really seeking your help on and what they really want from you. They might be there for shoulder pain, but maybe they're just looking for somebody to listen to them as well. They might put something on the form saying like, yeah, I have a bunch of shoulder pain and you can help me with that, but I've been really stressed out and I need to talk to somebody about how to make that better. So asking patient expectations, really good, highly recommend. And then getting their signature on it, like all of the above is true to the best of my knowledge. And this is just a link back to Jotform here, where they also have intake forms pre-built too. So just with that, and then drop any questions below in the comments about intake forms. Okay, so Deborah, that's what I thought you meant, but I just wanted to make sure. So these are the 3 different options that I recommend for creating digital forms: our Google Forms, Jotform, and Intake Queue. Google Forms is going to come with your G Suite account, and it'll make HIPAA compliant forms for you if you get a G Suite account. So it's free in a sense because it's covered under, you buying a G Suite account. Jotform is a lot more like flexible and more customizable as far as like what information or type of like inputs you might want. And it's free for healthcare workers right now, the HIPAA compliant version. And then Intake Queue is a paid service, but it's also amazing. So as far as like picking one, budget is going to be one thing, like how much can you be spending on your software? If you want something super simple, then I would say probably Google Forms is a good bet. Jotform, more customizable. And then Intake Queue has just been really good for me because I keep all my documentation in that system. And so whenever I send forms to clients and patients, they fill out the form and it automatically, pops back into their chart and into their profile. So kind of depends on like the organizational system that you have as well. So I hope that makes sense. But that would definitely be something that I would research, and you could like fiddle with each of them a little bit and see which one is going to work best for you. And Haley says, on Jotform, can patients sign a finger-drawn signature? Yes, they can, Haley. Excellent question. They absolutely can. I love Jotform. You can also take payment through Jotform, which is cool. And they also just added a feature on there where you can set it up so that it integrates with your Google Calendar, and you can use it to schedule appointments too. So it has a ton of stuff on there that's really helpful. So cool. Thank you. Awesome. Hey, Will. So if you guys have any other questions on forms, definitely drop those in the comments, but that leads us to our last slide for tonight. So pretty late night, which is totally fine because I know that this has been a lot of information so far, and I'll give you a little bit of time to kind of catch up. And so we'll just talk about our homework here a little bit. So assignments for day 3. Number 1 is going to be research and decide on a liability insurance. So you may or may not be able to talk to all of them before Saturday, but I would look at their websites, look into what plans they have, what coverage they have, see which one feels good to you. Ask around, research in the Facebook groups. We are also going to be creating our consent to treat forms and creating an intake form. So if we don't already have a G Suite account or a different way to, create these forms digitally, what you guys could do is, either on a Word document or a Google Doc, just write out like all the questions that you would want to put on there. And then when you're ready in the future, then we can always have you go back and add them into a digital form software. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. And then I know that people always have questions on their forms and like what should be included. Is this good enough? Should I change this? And so I think it would be helpful for everybody if you guys feel comfortable sharing at least one of the forms that you create, or at least the form templates that you create into the Facebook group. And then we can all kind of check in and give you any feedback and bounce ideas off of each other. And then finally, catch up on anything else that we're still working on. So catching up on days 1 and 2, as well as finishing up this stuff for day 3. Cool. So if you guys have any questions, I would love to stick around. I'll be here for, another 10 or 15 minutes, depending on how many questions we have. But I wanted to pop this link back up here again. I know a lot of you are kind of like working through the mini course and then seeing, what you feel like you need towards the end of it, or what else you might feel like you need help with. But if you're at a point where you're just like, okay, this seems awesome. Like I feel pretty comfortable getting started with my business, and I'd love to talk to somebody about like getting to the next level, or having guidance along the way with starting your business, or having somebody there to like help you create an entire marketing plan. Then check out this link right here on the screen. So just to my website, morganmeese.com/book-a-call. And we can talk about the different ways that I work with therapists. And I'm also happy to just offer some tips and tricks to help you guys get started on your way. So yeah, definitely check that out. But that is just about it for day 3. So what questions do you guys have on all the stuff that we have covered so far up until this point? All right. So Joey says, since I'm only doing fitness and wellness type services with my business right now, would I be able to use Jotform, or do I need to be a practicing PT with my business? So what I would do if you're looking for you probably wouldn't need like the HIPAA compliant version. So they do have a free option too. Like you can use Jotform for free. I think they just limit the number of forms you can have. But I would check out like their plans and their pricing that they have. And you could always like do the little application that's on their website for the HIPAA compliant version, and just tell them a little bit more about what you're doing and see if you do qualify for it. But there's definitely a free version, so you should be able to use it. And what one of my clients was asking me about today was like creating a consent to treat form, even though she's not offering therapy services. So like, what would that kind of look like? And so you might instead create something that's a little bit more along the lines of like a coaching agreement, like, hey, like this is what we're doing, privacy policies, cancellation policies, et cetera, et cetera. Still like a lot of the same content, but then also putting a blurb in there that says something along the lines of, like, even though like this business does contain like somebody with a physical therapy license, I completely understand that I will be receiving fitness coaching at this time, and I will not be receiving skilled physical therapy services, so that everyone's on the same page and our paperwork helps to support that we are sticking within the fitness realm. So I hope that's helpful. Kathy says, can you give me access to mini course number 2? Yes, it is available right now. It's still in the units tab. So in the same place that I tagged you for day 1, and all you guys watching, if you did miss any of the last 2 days, what you'll do after we, log off here is you'll go to the units tab inside this Facebook group. And then under unit 1, you'll see therapy business basics. And then there will be day 1, day 2, and then it'll just take me a couple minutes, but I'll also put day 3 inside that unit there. So you'll have access to it there. Divine says, is it legal to have a cancellation fee? Yep, 100%. I probably wouldn't charge like $1,000 for a cancellation fee or something like that. But, just like any medical office, at least the ones that I've been to, they have like a 24-hour cancellation fee. I know the dentist that I went to had like a 24-hour same day cancellation fee of like $50. And it's very common for people to have a cancellation fee. It's completely up to you on what you want to do. But it does also kind of help, put a protection in place for you so that you don't have people just like not showing up or rescheduling last minute all the time, because that can be a problem if we don't set up some boundaries. So yeah, it's 100% legal. Suzanne says, I had a question about telehealth. What if I want to provide services to someone not in my city and county, but in my state? Great question, Suzanne. So somebody was asking about this the other day, I think as well. And what I suggested, and again, if this is something you're really concerned about, then maybe I would call your city and ask and see if they have any suggestions, or speak to like a business attorney. But I wouldn't worry about, I'm assuming that you mean like about like business licensing or things like that. If you're doing telehealth across the state, but in a different city, I would only worry about it if like a significant portion of your business is being done outside of where you are locally. Like you're generating a ton of revenue outside where you are locally, but because a lot of us are still so small, and most of the time it's not really an issue. So as long as you are like licensed where you are and you are practicing business, that's all that I would really worry about right now. But again, if it's something that you're worried about, then we can always talk about finding a business attorney. So I hope that answers your question. And honestly, like that's what most people do here. So like I only have a business license in Henderson, but I've done business in Las Vegas. And there, all the other like therapists that I know, they only have the one like local business license in the city that they live in. So I don't think many people really worry about that, especially in the beginning phases of their business. Cool. So Adam says, so if you could choose to go with intake queue, you can do all payments, appointments, etc. through there. So the other payment processors discussed yesterday would not be necessary. So what you would do, Adam, is intake queue integrates with either Stripe or Square. So like I use intake queue as like my practice management software, and then I can create invoices and keep a credit card number on file within intake queue. And then in intake queue, when I click on the button that says like enter payment now, it tells Square to charge their card. So intake queue itself is not a payment processor, but it allows you to like charge the patient and then processes it through Square. So let me know if that makes sense. Suzanne said, so Suzanne's mom is a PT who has her own business, which is awesome. She has a 24-hour fee, but only does it if it's repeated, not if it is their first missed visit. Yeah, and I think that's a great point, Suzanne. So, I would recommend having the policy in place so that you have it to refer back to, and you're not just like making it up willy-nilly all the time. But I've done the same thing where, depending on my relationship with the patient, if it was just like some like freak accident that they didn't show up, I don't then charge them, especially if, we end up talking and we figure out what happens. But if it's somebody who's like consistently not showing up, then I would consider doing that instead. So good point. So Melissa says, if I choose to do telehealth in 2 states, licensed in both, do I need to register LLC in both states? Great question, Melissa. And so again, what I would recommend doing is just worry about the LLC in your own state right now until you're starting to generate business. And then I would use the revenue that you're generating to register as a foreign business in another state if it's making up a significant amount of your revenue. And so you could always look into like the financial and tax regulations of that other state and see what's going on. But a big part with telehealth is that, it's even though it's been around for a long time, it's still like the laws still haven't really caught up as much. And so I wouldn't worry about it just starting out. But, when you have been in it for several months and you're generating quite a bit of revenue, then that's something that you could investigate. And you could always contact the other state's Secretary of State department and ask them about the situation as well, and see what input they have for you. So hope that makes sense. Cool. Awesome, Melissa. Kelly says, when researching filing my business, I frequently saw that obtaining a lawyer was advised. Did you hire an attorney for your practice? No, I did not. Most therapists that I know did not hire a lawyer. A lot of people do, and a lot of people are a lot more comfortable that way. I didn't, and a lot of the people that helped me get started also did not. So again, it really kind of depends on the whole like risk tolerance situation. So, if you feel pretty confident in your research from what you've found out on like how to file and what's required, you can do it on your own. And then in the future, you could always hire a lawyer to help you look over all of your paperwork. But some people do have the capital to invest in that aspect of their business right up front and prefer to just get started with that, right from the get-go. So it's not required. It's just some people would prefer to do that, but most people I know did not hire a lawyer. It might just be like a little trickier in some states where they have like kind of like weird regulations, or it seems a little bit more complicated. That might be a reason where I would hire a lawyer, because it was getting to be so complicated. So long-winded answer, but not required, just suggested in some situations. So let me know what you think about that. Yeah, so what other questions do you guys have? And I'll just pull up the assignment sheet as well, to show you guys where we're at with that. So day 3, protect. Again, we'll click here to submit practicing using our job form. And like this one is also pretty short. What professional liability insurance are you looking into? And then if you do end up, creating a digital form, I would love to see it. So go ahead and drop a link to your form here. But if you're just going to like write it out on paper or something like that, just note in here that you're working on it. And share with us what you get in the Facebook group. Cool. Awesome. So great. Anything else before I let you guys go? Kelly said thanks. Melissa said thanks. Adam said thanks. Kathy said, will any of the courses cover marketing ideas? I know you mentioned about reaching out to you, but just curious if there will be a mini course. So at this point, this mini course that I'm covering, and I talked about it more on Monday in the day 1 lesson, is just going over like the very beginning basics of setting up a business and getting your admin sorted, so that, the next time that a patient comes to you and says, I would like to pay you privately to work with me, you have everything set up so that you can legitimately and legally do that. And so this piece, getting all of these things set up, depending on how much time you have, can take a few weeks. And it typically is about like 10% of what I work on with people. And marketing is a whole big bear in and of itself. So in just these 4 days, I won't have time to go over marketing. But, it's definitely something that might happen in the future. But if you guys are wanting to get things started now, kind of the way that like I operate with most things is that I take action on things as soon as I can, then I can help you get set up with marketing sooner rather than later. And I still have a couple of slots open for the digital marketing audits that I'm doing, just quick little conversations to help see where you guys are at with your digital marketing plan. So if that is something that you're interested in, just comment below and tag me in the comment and just put like, I'm interested in a digital marketing audit, and I'd be happy to talk to you about that. But cool. Yeah, good question, Kathy. Deb, you're so calm, cool, and collected. Thank you, Deborah. Yeah, and thank you guys so much for being here. I hope this has been helpful for you guys so far. And, remember tomorrow, just show you guys this really quick. We are going to be talking about like all things G Suite because it is the cheapest, easiest, simplest way to get started with kind of like a practice management system. And so this is where I recommend most people who are starting, invest in this because the base account is like $6 a month, and it's very low risk as an investment in software for your business. So we'll be talking about G Suite stuff, how to do some documentation inside G Suite, using the calendar for scheduling, and then picking some communication, some contact information for your business, and how to use Google Meet for telehealth, which is super simple, HIPAA compliant, and free because it's included in your G Suite. And that will be what we're finishing up on with the therapy business basics. So another thing that I would love to hear from you guys is if there are any other questions that you have on this business setup type stuff, please leave them in the comments, so that we can touch on them tomorrow during our last lesson and our last day. We're almost there, but awesome. Yay, I'm glad that today was a confidence builder, Suzanne. I'm glad to hear that. Kathy, tomorrow's course, same time as today. Yes, ma'am. 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. So awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here. I can't tell you how happy I am. So I hope that this stuff is helpful for you guys, and just let me know what other questions you have. Because if you don't know by now, I am very happy to help. So yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow. Talk to you soon.